We will continue to pass laws and policies that promote our values.
That statement really exemplifies what is going on in this video. Here in California, we have something called cap and trade. It's an unconstitutional pollution tax or carbon tax that was recently upheld by the courts. Essentially, California has selected industry that it doesn't want in the state anymore, has levied a tax against them, and then redistributes that money to industry it wants to prop up. This is the definition of picking winners and losers, otherwise known as fascism. All of this is being done in the name of fighting global warming. But this philosophy is not doing what they are intending, because what's happening is businesses are moving their operations to other states so they can continue doing the things that California claims it is stopping. So California is not stopping so-called global warming, they're just moving it to another place. And so the result of this policy for the last 10 years has been the following. 9,000 businesses have left the state. Maybe that's why homelessness is spiraling out of control, because people's industries are leaving the state. They can't find a new job because their industry is gone, so they end up on the street. This just goes to show that California's progressive policies actually worsen the human condition.
California is proof positive that progressive values put into action improve the human condition.
That's State Senator Kevin De Leon, who is running for U.S. Senator, and we're going to be talking about him a lot more. California is undergoing a major decline as we speak, and it's because of people like Kevin De Leon. But we always hear how California is the world's 6th largest economy, and it's because of illegal immigration. They actually make this argument when they justify their open borders policies. But the only reason why California is so strong economically is because of Hollywood and Silicon Valley. Take those two things out of the equation, and California would be in serious trouble. Even with the tax base of Hollywood and Silicon Valley, California has the highest level of poverty in the nation. Just think of what a basket case California would be if it didn't have the tax revenue of Hollywood and Silicon Valley to spread around so it can further perpetuate the poverty we already see. This is Senate Bill 535, which was authored by Kevin De Leon. This is the law that established the label disadvantaged communities in California. When you hear California politicians say the term disadvantaged communities, you must realize that they are talking about something that has a very specific definition. What is a disadvantaged community? Disadvantaged communities refers to the areas throughout California which most suffer from a combination of economic, health, and environmental burdens. These burdens include poverty, high unemployment, health conditions like asthma and heart disease, as well as air and water pollution and hazardous waste. Communities of color, models for environmental justice. Often in public policy, we look at communities of color as disadvantaged or through a deficit lens. But this project powerfully showed that communities of color stand at the forefront of environmental justice, and their work can serve as a model for community transformation. Everything that is being shown in this video is in relation to this concept of environmental justice. In the last year, environmental justice has been codified into law, which means all cities in California, when doing their city planning, must use environmental justice as a concept. This was passed by Eloise Gomez-Reyes in a bill called AB 523. As you can see, Eloise Gomez-Reyes and Kevin De Leon are very close to each other as they are always seen together at public events. Several years ago, we went to a meeting and we were introduced to environmental justice. This is the answer we received when we asked them to clarify what it meant.
Environmental justice, to make sure the low-income population households their interests are protected. That is very important. That's why we are here. Yes.
Can you define what the minorities are? What minorities are you protecting?
Yes, minorities based on the federal definition, really based on the ethnicity. So any non-white ethnicity, including African American, including Asian, including Hispanic.
So you would be considered a minority?
I would say so.
So
by the federal definition, yes.
okay, I just want to understand what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. But as a matter of fact, we do see, that's a very good question, Tracy. We do see a trend that so define the minority may become majority in terms of the population.
So if there's less Caucasian people, then are they the minorities too, or not?
Caucasians are still considered as non-minority by definition.
We live in Fontana, Hispanic people are the majority.
In number.
In numbers. But that's not what you would consider a minority. So because there's less Caucasian people, that's not a minority.
Hispanics, even in your community, they are majority by numbers. They are still defined as minority.
So my purpose for showing that clip, as well as making this video, is to illustrate that there are in fact racially based policies being created where one group is favored over another.
What's the scope of what we're talking about?
Number one is racial policies.
However, in the case of California, one group is favored over all other groups. So what these maps are is the map on the left is the Cal EnviroScreen results, which shows which communities in California are disadvantaged. The darker areas in the orange and the red represent the most disadvantaged communities in California. There's also a huge clump down here in Southern California, which I'll be focusing on more in a moment. The map on the right shows the percentage of illegal aliens in the state, which I don't know how they get these numbers since they are in fact undocumented. But similarly, in this map, the darker areas show the higher concentrations of illegal aliens, and also down here, there's a huge concentration, which I will be focusing more on momentarily. As you can see, both maps are essentially mirror images of one another, as the more illegal concentration you have, the more likely your community is in fact disadvantaged. So these are disadvantaged communities in Southern California. The red areas represent the most disadvantaged communities in Southern California. So we're going to zoom in here, and I want to show you guys what's going on in some of these cities, starting with Huntington Park. Now, what I'm about to say about Huntington Park is not something that I just dreamed up on my own. This is what they say about themselves.
Those individuals who have come over here and said that you don't represent the community are completely mistaken. This community is 90% Latino, 45% undocumented, and these two individuals deserve the right to be here.
So as you can see, Huntington Park is 97.4% Hispanic, and the facts are the facts. The higher your non-Caucasian population, the higher your illegal alien population. So let's move over to neighboring Maywood. Maywood is a disadvantaged community, and their Hispanic population is 97.6%. Let's move northeast over to Montebello. Montebello's right here. Montebello is a disadvantaged community, and Montebello has a Hispanic population of 80.8%. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Go up here, and now suddenly, we don't have disadvantaged populations. And one thing I want to point out is if you live in Southern California, there's pollution everywhere. Every part of Southern California deals with pollution, but apparently this area right here, which is surrounded by disadvantaged communities, apparently this is not a disadvantaged community and they are not suffering from pollution. So let's take a look at Monterey Park and see what's going on over here. So Monterey Park is not a disadvantaged community. Their Hispanic population is only 27%, but their Asian population is 66.7%. So that's what I meant when I said earlier that one group is favored over all other groups. The Asians do not count when it comes to these statistics, and they do not get all this state funding. So let's zoom out for a second. So as I showed, Monterey Park, this area apparently does not get any pollution. So let's move further north up here to Alhambra. Let's see what's going on with Alhambra. So Alhambra is not a disadvantaged community. It's very close to a disadvantaged community, but let's look at their statistics. Alhambra has a Hispanic population of 34.8%, but has an Asian population of over 50%. And once again, Asian immigrants, they do not fall into this state funding. So let's zoom back out and see what else we have going on here. So let's move over to La Puente over here. So La Puente is basically a peninsula of disadvantaged community, while the surrounding areas apparently are not disadvantaged communities, basically telling us that they don't deal with pollution. So let's see what's going on with La Puente. The peninsula of La Puente is 86% Hispanic. Are you guys noticing a trend yet? So let's zoom back out. And let's come up here to Temple City. Temple City, Arcadia, and Pasadena, these are not disadvantaged communities. Now see how Pasadena is along 2 freeways. Temple City is in between a bunch of freeways. Arcadia is by a freeway. So let's start with Temple City. Temple City is 19.4% Hispanic, but is 59.5% Asian, because as we have learned, Asians don't get a piece of the pie. Now moving on up to Arcadia. The city of Arcadia is 12.9% Hispanic, so they're not disadvantaged, and they have a 62% Asian population. Let's move up more up here to Sierra Madre. Sierra Madre is by the freeway, sits up by the mountains here, which is where all the pollution sits. So this is definitely an area that deals with pollution, but they're not a disadvantaged community. Let's see why. Here's why. Sierra Madre is 16.4% Hispanic and nearly 70% white. Therefore, they are not disadvantaged. And let's go over here west over to Pasadena. Pasadena is not disadvantaged even though they're sitting right in between 2 freeways. Pasadena is not a disadvantaged community. They are 34% Hispanic, but is also 38% white and 14.8% Asian. Therefore, they don't get the state money. So let's zoom back out and see what we can find. Okay, so notice how these areas are not disadvantaged, these areas are not disadvantaged, but then this little sliver up here is disadvantaged. So first, let's look at West Hollywood. Why aren't they disadvantaged? So West Hollywood is only 11% Hispanic, but is 76.8% white. So they are not disadvantaged. Now let's go up here and see what's going on. We have this big red sliver up here that apparently there's only pollution that goes up this way and not anywhere else. So let's see what these cities are. So we have the city of San Fernando. Let's see what's going on in San Fernando. Just this little sliver of disadvantaged communities. Not here, but right here. San Fernando, which is a disadvantaged community, is 93.3% Hispanic. Therefore, they get the tax dollars. And so I could go on and on and on and show you dozens of cities with these exact same examples. But the fact is what I showed you in the beginning of this video is very relevant to everything that we are seeing here in Southern California.
We will continue to pass laws and policies that promote our values.
So what this boils down to is we have had an invasion of open borders. Their numbers have gotten so great that they have elected their people into office so they can pass policies that benefit their people. And they have said this out loud. Business and industry is being taxed out of existence, further impoverishing our state and proliferating homelessness. And much of that money is being redistributed to low-income cities where most of the residents aren't even legally in this country. It is only the Hispanic undocumented population that goes in the street and waves the flag of a foreign nation. We see no other immigrant group do this, and the reason why we see this is because they have been brainwashed that the land we are living on is stolen and they have a right to take it from us. That is why their legislators go to the state capitol and pass laws taking money out of the pockets of everyone else so it can be redistributed to their people. This is reparations for what they say is stolen land.
We are ready for a cleaner environment, and we are ready for our fair share of resources.
And so here's the last part of the presentation. Agricultural Worker Vanpool's pilot project grant solicitation. The California Air Resources Board, CARB, is pleased to announce a grant solicitation for an administrator to implement the Agricultural Worker Vanpool's pilot project for fiscal years 2016 through 17 and 2017 through 18. This is one of a suite of CARB-funded equity pilot projects that, together with committed partners, are employing innovative solutions to bring the benefits of clean transportation to disadvantaged communities that are most impacted by pollution. The current funding for this competitive solicitation is $6 million. This pilot project is funded by the Low Carbon Transportation Program and is part of California Climate Investments, a statewide program that puts cap-and-trade dollars to work, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthening the economy while shutting down 9,000 businesses in the process, and improving public health and the environment, particularly in disadvantaged communities. So we are redistributing $6 million from an unconstitutional pollution tax fund to fund illegals so they get free rides to work. Gas is over $3 a gallon. The gas tax just went up. The gas tax is going up again another 71 cents because of the deal made last year to extend cap and trade. Sacramento is now talking congestion pricing to make driving even more expensive. But don't worry. The illegals are getting their rides taken care of for free. Free for them, but not free for you. And so recently, we attended an event at UCR where we learned that the Cap and Trade Fund has $6 billion in it. And all these different leftist groups are trying to get their hands on it. $2 billion of the $6 billion has already been allocated. And the illegals have already gotten $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion has already been sent to the illegals.
Ashley mentioned in her opening remarks that there's been $6 billion appropriated for these respective programs over the course of the last 4 years. And many of you probably know this, but that money, when it goes to the agencies, they begin the process of grant making or issuing funding for individual projects. About $2 billion in funding has made its way into specific projects that are on the ground right now providing benefits. And half of that money, that $2 billion, is benefiting the state's most impacted and disadvantaged communities.
So we're at University of California, Riverside, and we're here for the Cleaner and More Sustainable California Summit.
And the thing is that I don't want to
see how our cap and trade dollars are being. Investing in California communities for a better future. A statewide initiative that puts billions of cap-and-trade dollars to work reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthening the economy, improving public health and the environment. And we're here to find out about funding opportunities.
I'd next like to introduce a friend and great colleague of mine to provide some opening remarks. Ashley Conrad Seda, who's the Deputy Secretary for Climate Policy at the California Environmental Protection Agency. Ashley.
This program is really intended to help transform California, to give all of you an opportunity to improve livelihoods, to improve health outcomes, and to envision and enact a California that will help us reduce our greenhouse gas emissions over time and really help California continue to be the global leader in this space. So in terms of climate change, California really is where it's happening. We are a leader in the action that we're taking. We're a leader in the investments we're making in our communities. We're a leader in our goals and in our ambition. And jurisdictions around the world are watching what we do. We're sitting at a point right now where we have a lot of money to spend. We have over $6 billion appropriated from the fund. We've got a lot of money on the ground. At least 30% of those funds are going directly into disadvantaged communities as defined by CalEnviroScreen. 50% are benefiting those communities as well. In terms of housing, we have 1,600 affordable housing units under contract as a result of this funding. You'll hear more of these statistics, and we'll put out an annual report in just a few weeks, so you'll get to see in detail how much we're doing. But it's over 200,000 individual projects as a result of this funding.
So we have over $6 billion that have been appropriated to different programs. Over $3 billion have been awarded to specific projects, and over $2 billion of those dollars are being implemented on the ground today. So that's across the whole state. And of that money, 31% of that money is located within disadvantaged communities, and over 50% benefits disadvantaged communities.
So Ashley mentioned in her opening remarks that there's been $6 billion appropriated for these respective programs over the course of the last 4 years. And many of you probably know this, but that money, when it goes to the agencies, they begin the process of grant making or issuing funding for individual projects. And so it takes some time. It takes some time to make its way into individual projects and hit the ground, and it takes those partnerships that are so important. In the upcoming annual report that my agency is going to provide, and kind of summarizing the information from all of these agencies, we're showing that about $2 billion in funding has made its way into specific projects that are on the ground right now providing benefits, and half of that money, that $2 billion, is benefiting the state's most impacted and disadvantaged communities. And I think that is a significant accomplishment, worth praise from you all too, because this really is your accomplishment. And half of that money going into things like cleaner transit, more transit, cleaner vehicles, zero-emission vehicles, weatherized homes that are helping protect indoor air quality, rooftop solar, urban forestry. There's a great couple of urban forestry projects around this region, as well as more transit in the region. It's going into things like affordable housing. It's going into things like reduced water and energy usage, and so there's some projects that are saving water while also saving energy. And these are all projects that they're climate investments. They're meant to get greenhouse gas reductions, and they're getting pretty significant greenhouse gas reductions. But I think what you're hearing and what I've seen is that it's not a single system. It's not a single solution. It's not just climate change and greenhouse gas reductions. These are other benefits. There's reduced criteria pollutants and improved air quality. There's better access to transit. There's reduced energy costs. There's really this combination of effects that are coming from these different investments that are benefiting individuals and communities.
Yes, I do come from a migrant farmer family. We always struggled finding work and housing for us. I mean, we were migrants. I mean, I was born in the state of Washington. 2 other brothers were born there. Other sisters were born in the state of Idaho. Others were born in Mexico. So, and then we ended up in California. So yes, we were migrants. And here in California, this is where we most migrated. The farm workers' lives and work in an environmental that is contaminated from heavy use of pesticides. And also that are paid very low wages, live in substandard housing, and don't have any easy access to health care. The increased risks to health from heat exposure and stress, the increased vulnerability, pardon me, it's my second language, vulnerabilidad, we say it in Spanish, farm worker housing to climate change. To top it off, the current corrosive anti-immigrant sentiment, which makes it even harder for immigrants to ask for help. We also believe in the power of the collective. However, this important work requires sustained financial support. We started by just using gas money. We started with $8,000. We organized 12 different communities around rural California. Who can do that with $8,000? You know, well, it can be done, but we can't sustain it. We cannot sustain it. And we work in partnerships also with many community-based organizations, and national organizations. We have learned from them also. We know we are good allies and work in collaboration with governmental agencies also, as long as they respect us. We do that work together in partnerships. This is why I'm here to express to you the importance to invest time, energy, and funding for farm workers and other low-wage and immigrant workers on environmental justice. No one has told me, I have lived it. I have seen populations of farm workers and other low-wage immigrant workers suffer the hardships and consequences of environmental injustice. This is why it is important that farm workers and immigrant low-wage workers, low-wage worker organizations receive funding from the climate investment funds. Let's visualize a different climate, investing in underrepresented communities. There's a saying before I finish it, and I know that there's been a sign in the back telling me that thank you, thank you, thank you. But there's a saying that I always do, and I hope you can all join. Who knows about the clapping and doing it quick? And this is the unity clapping. Well, I'm going to show it, and then I hope you can join. And then there's at the end we say, I ask, ¿se puede? And people respond, sí se puede. And then I ask again, ¿se puede? And then you're going to respond, sí se puede. And then we can do it in English. Can we do it? And then you're going to say, yes, we can. Right? Can we do it?
Yes,
we
can.
All right, okay. Let's start with a clap. The unity clap. You start, slow, go high, quick, and then you go slow again, and then we'll do the yes we can, and sí se puede. Okay, let's go.